Gardaí have confirmed that they are investigating around 200 reports of suspected child sexual abuse images generated by the AI platform Grok. The details were given to the Oireachtas Media Committee, which held a hearing today on the issue of online safety. Well, for more on this, we're joined by our work and technology correspondent, Brian O'Donovan. And Brian, some really strong words from the Gardaí at the committee hearing today. What else did we learn from it?
That's right, Tommy. And those strong words started even before the committee hearing got underway, because in a written submission to the committee ahead of the hearing, the head of the Garda cybercrime unit had some very strong words talking about how what was happening with these Grok AI tools right now was an abhorrent disregard of personal dignity and an abuse of societal trust. The Gardaí vowed to thoroughly investigate all of these cases and said they would bring prosecutions where deemed necessary. The European headquarters of X is located on Dublin's Fenian Street, a short distance away. In a committee room in Leinster House, politicians and senior Gardaí today discussed how to address the controversy that has been embroiling the social media platform for weeks. Members were told that Gardaí are investigating around 200 reports of suspected child sexual abuse images generated by Grok.
From our perspective, we have received reports and referrals of content on that particular platform that is under investigation. So, as you know, the investigation process takes some time. The content has to be assessed. It has to be assessed to make sure it's criminal, and thereafter, the people responsible have to be identified, if that's possible, and the action then stems from there. The investigative action stems from there.
There was no shortage of criticism of X among the committee members.
You have the likes of X they've given 2 fingers to tech regulations and 2 fingers to children in this state, in my opinion.
As a woman, I feel particularly vulnerable online at this moment, and I'm sure that's echoed with many of my colleagues in the room around the table. Several
committee members asked if there was sufficient legislation to deal with online crimes.
There's a lot of frustration, I suppose, and just concern and confusion around, what is the prosecutorial picture here and investigative picture here, because it seems that there are more barriers to investigating and prosecuting crimes that happen online than in the physical world, if you like.
Just on the fines, and some of the fines are eye-watering. And by the way, I think Commissioner Mann are doing a good job. But I think part of the problem is that fines are not sufficient.
Meta, TikTok, Google and X have all been invited to a hearing of the Media Committee next month, when the issue will be discussed once again.
And Brian, there are some indications this evening that X may be acting on some of these concerns. What more do we know about that?
Well, Tommy, this actually all started this morning with the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer saying that he welcomed reports that X was taking steps to deal with this issue, but nobody exactly knew what he was talking about. Fast forward to this evening, and about an hour ago, with the European Commission coming out saying it will also assess steps that have been taken by X to ban Grok from generating these sexualised images of adults and children. However, we still don't have a statement from X on this, so it seems that something is being communicated at high-level, political level, to the British government, to the European Commission. And perhaps that is a reminder of the fact that this is a global issue, and I think we saw that reflected today in the committee room, a very, very short walk from the European headquarters of X, and many of the committee members asking, well, we regulate them here in Ireland, why can't we take a tougher stance on X? But I think a reflection, as I say, that this is a global issue, a bigger problem that will have to be dealt, certainly from an Irish perspective, probably at EU level. Interesting as well to note, I mentioned in the piece there that we have these other tech firms all being invited to the Oireachtas Media Committee next month to pursue this issue. That would be TikTok, Google, Meta and X. The committee chairman, Alan Kelly, saying that 3 of the 4 have replied with a yes, they will be there. And he says you can guess who the 4th is, so we can assume that if there is another hearing on this in a couple of weeks' time, we could have a big X-shaped hole in the committee room, I'm afraid, Tommy, discussing the very issue that relates to that platform.
Right. Brian O'Donovan, thank you.
We're turning now to that Oireachtas committee today, where the head of the Garda National Cyber Crime Bureau confirmed it's investigating 200 child abuse images created on the Grok AI app. We're joined now by Barry O'Sullivan, Professor of Computer Science at UCC and an expert on artificial intelligence. Thanks for joining us this evening, Barry. Gardaí also said today, last year they had 25,000 referrals of images that were suspected to involve child abuse. Will that rise, do you expect, because of this AI tool Grok that's been used?
Well, unfortunately, yes. There's going to be a growth in these types of images because it's just easier to create them now. And people out there who have an interest in producing this kind of content for whatever reason, it's just at their fingertips. So absolutely, there's absolutely no reason to believe that this is going to decrease. Quite the opposite, unfortunately.
Gardaí also said today that it's very difficult and it's complex to track and to hunt down the people who are producing these images and posting them online, although there are 200 images suspected to have been created by Grok. Why is it so difficult?
Well, one of the reasons is that people who create this content, they're not going to tell you who they are. So online, they're essentially hiding behind anonymous accounts. Most social media platforms do not have what's called a real name policy. So you can basically present yourself as anybody you wish, use a fake email address. You don't identify yourself, and so between the perpetrator and the police is that cloak of anonymity. And of course, these platforms are global in scale, so the chances of finding exactly who is producing these things is very, very challenging at the moment.
And people might ask, why not just go after the platforms then? Because they clearly aren't enforcing their own community standards. And we heard today that not one platform has been prosecuted for hosting these images.
Yes, well, they're regulated in the European Union by the Digital Services Act. So there is a regulation, there's a piece of legislation there that they can be brought to task with, and the fines can be prohibitive. Significant proportions of their international revenue. So the regulations are there. What we need is enforcement. Now, at a local level, those who enforce these pieces of legislation, Commission Demand, they are very, very active. But they're dealing with an organisation and with organisations that are global. They're larger than any state in the world. They have a very complex structure. And unfortunately, the people who, what needs to be done is essentially these organisations need to demonstrate that they're upholding the highest standards. And of course, unfortunately, we're seeing that they're not.
So what can be done to make these platforms safer? We've heard a lot of discussion about age verification for children so they can't access certain content. And as you say, perhaps forcing people to have to use their real names. What's the solution?
Well, so in the last few days, we've heard that Elon Musk is now limiting the image production capabilities of Grok to paid subscribers. Now, presumably one of the reasons he's doing that is because paid subscribers obviously will have to have provided a credit card, so they've identified themselves. But we do have to look at anonymity online, so people, when they have access to extremely powerful technology that can have devastating consequences for individuals, that there has to be accountability both from the user but also from the platform. And so, to the extent that the platforms can be held to account in the European Union through the Digital Services Act and elsewhere, that needs to be upheld. But we do have to make it easier for law enforcement to be able to step in and find the perpetrators of crimes like the production of these types of images, but also those who are in positions of responsibility. They also need to be held to account corporately or individually.
Barry O'Sullivan, Professor at the School of Computer Science and IT at UCC. Thank you for joining us on 6-1 this evening.
Thank you.